Hello, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about one of those forbidden topics, or at least one that your parents warn you to be careful when discussing. It's not politics, it's not religion, it's not that other thing, it's money. Money can be very divisive, but as we all know, we talk about it nearly every day of our lives. It's that important to our existence, whether we're talking about things to do with our children or holidays to go on as a couple or with friends, or what sort of car to buy if we're able to do that. Money is a ubiquitous issue. It's everywhere. And so we're going to talk about it, I think, in a very interesting way. And I've got a few extra ideas up my sleeve. So if you have something up your sleeve, it means you have a secret plan. So I have something up my sleeve, which means I have a secret plan of sorts, not really, but not for profit is the title of this chapter. And Brunello Cucinelli has said, I believe in capitalism. I need to make a profit, but I would like to do it with ethics, dignity, and morals. Well, it's certainly possible, and that is the standard to adhere to. But when the competition is fierce, people are tempted. I think that's what history has told us. And even today, as we look at different industries, we call this a cutthroat industry. If something is a cutthroat industry, it's an industry where you will do anything to survive or make a profit, including hurting or damaging or somehow negatively affecting the competition. All right, we're going to talk about vocabulary and money, and this is, I hope, going to be very interesting. We're going to start out with what I consider, I think the book's done a great job here, of 6 very interesting phrases that are used very often. So you want to know these. Money doesn't grow on trees. This is something my parents uttered, U-T-T-E-R-E-D. If they utter something, they say it. They uttered on many occasions. I might also say on not a few occasions. If it's not a few, it's many. And the idea here, I think, is simple and probably universal, common to all languages, especially when speaking to children who aren't aware of how difficult it is to raise these funds or earn them, that we have to watch how we spend our money. We can't spend things frivolously. And I think what I'm going to do, frivolously. So we have to watch how we spend. We have to be a little bit more sensitive to our budget and pocketbook. If you talk about your pocketbook, it's in your pocket. And traditionally, you would carry your wallet in your pocket. And that was a metaphor for money. If you're really tight-fisted, probably something similar in your language, you don't like to spend a lot of money. And at this point, I'm going to go down and look at tight-fisted synonyms, money, dealing with money. Now, we have, interestingly, 3 different categories of this concept. So it can be a positive, it can be a negative or a flaw in somebody's character. Heaven forbid we marry someone like that. Or it could be neutral, just there's no judgment involved. Now let's talk about them. First, let's talk about let's go to the negative, because this is, I think, generally what people associate. It's easier to talk in the negative, I think, but not always. But stingy, we can practice these words, not stingy. Now a bee stings, but this is stingy. Penny pinching, this is to pinch. But you pinch your pennies, you hold on to them tightly. Miserly is a good word. He's a miser, he's miserly, that's the adjective. Or simply, he's cheap or she's cheap, but mainly we associate this with men. He's cheap. He doesn't want to buy a nice seat at the concert, we have the cheap seats way at the top where we can't see anything. We also have another word, cheapskate. If you're a cheapskate, you just add skate, like the sport, at the end, all one word. It's a very common American expression. He's a cheapskate. He doesn't like to spend his money. Now, neutral, I think, is more difficult to grasp. And I think it's really interesting. In English, we don't have a word that is neutral. You're going to see positives and negatives, but we don't have a word for neutral. And I think that sort of verifies or underscores the point I made at the outset. Money is a very emotional term or subject. And generally, we feel one way or another. We rarely feel nothing or neutral. So in English, then, we have to describe neutrality, cost conscious, cautious with money, sparing in expenses. To spare is to save. It's an old term for save. Sparing with expenses, or watching the pennies. Watching their pennies. On the positive side, budget conscious. Although honestly, all of these could be used sarcastically in a negative sense. You have to listen to the tone and the context. Economical, thrifty, frugal. And then there's another one, which I'm not sure even exists. I put it here because I've never said it, but I know it exists, but I've never said it. So I'm wondering if it's even used much, is what I mean. Money savvy. But let me tell you why I kept it here, because there is a word with savvy that you will find a lot, and that's tech savvy. If someone is tech savvy, they're really good in the IT or tech industry. So savvy is a great word. It's a great word on its own, but you can be something savvy. Generally, tech savvy, I think, is the most common collocation today. All right, let's move down to, well, we're not quite there. We're going to get to that in a minute. Number 3, if you look here, it must have cost an arm and a leg. This is an expression that means, as you probably can guess, it was expensive. Now, we have 2 other body parts that we will give to the store or someone, indicating it's super expensive. I would give my right arm to go on that trip. So you can give your right arm. Now, they do mention an arm and a leg, but that's a set phrase. Then we have a separate phrase where you give just your right arm, not your left, your right. And right is considered more important. Sorry if you're a left-hander, but most people are right-handed, and that is the most important, or the more important arm of the 2. And now you can also give your eye tooth or eye teeth. Honestly, I would say eye tooth, singular, but I know dictionaries will also say teeth. I'd give my eye teeth, but I always heard eye tooth, which are these front teeth, the ones that are most visible, which means you would give a lot to have that. I'd give my eye teeth or eye tooth. What about you? What body parts would you give away to indicate it's very expensive? Think about how you express this in your own language. And the reason I ask you to do this is twofold. Twofold, T-W-O-F-O-L-D. Twofold. First, it is just an interesting topic to talk about. And you learn about the different cultures and what body parts are important. Secondly, I believe it helps you remember more the English phrases because you've compared them with your own. And so you have this interesting comparison. You might have emotions that are mixed in with this as you laugh or smirk, as you understand the differences. So I think you can remember things longer with such comparisons. Number 4, I can't make ends meet means I run out of month before I run out of money. Has anyone heard that expression? I'll say it again. If you run out of month, you run out of money before you run out of month. So before the month ends, before you're paid again, you're out of money. And so it's interesting when you look at any sort of, if you chart budgets and revenue from restaurants and entertainment places, the weekend before payday or right before payday, it's where people spend the least because they've spent all their money throughout the month, and now they're near the end, they don't have much. So you run out of money before you run out of month and get paid again. It's a very funny one. We're in the red. That's an accounting term. If you're in the black, you're showing a profit as a business. If you're in the red, you're showing a deficit. A deficit means you're losing money. This is an accounting term for businesses, but of course you can apply it to your personal finances. Let's hope all of us are in the black. It's a ripoff. Now, this is a very common expression that I'm going to dwell on for a few minutes in the form of a PDF presentation or short slide here. It's a ripoff. There are two types of ripoffs. One where it's just simply overpriced, that's on the right, or if it's really negative like fraud or deception. So let's look at on the left here, strongly negative. What a scam. It's a con. That's a swindle. I've heard it, but I wanted to keep everything the same, so I put it like this. But in fact, we would say it looks like you've been swindled. That's the most common way to express that in the passive. It's a sham or it's a racket. If it's a racket, you have been, defrauded. We say defrauded of something. So a form of deceit, deception, a form of deceit. Now, the people, interestingly, are derivatives of these words. So something fraudulent is committed by a fraud. Fraud is the person. A scam is committed by a scammer. A con is not committed by a conner. It's committed by a con artist. A con artist. You could say by a con, but generally it's con artist. I've been conned. I've been conned. Someone's stolen my, it was a ruse. Oh, this is a great word. I should have put that in there. When I start speaking, then more words come out. A ruse, R-U-S-E, is something similar. I like ruse. I love how it sounds. That's if you've been swindled, you're swindled by a swindler. We don't have anything for sham or racket, I don't believe. Racketeering is a form of racketing, but it's not the person. All right, overpriced. So a ripoff obviously means so expensive. So you've either been scammed on the one hand, or you've just paid way too much money, which brings us to a great discussion question that we might broach or bring up during the live. Have you ever paid for something you've paid way too much money for something and immediately felt bad about it once you got home? We have a very funny expression for this: buyer's remorse. I have buyer's remorse. Remorse means you feel very sad and you're the buyer, so you're the sad buyer. You realize when you got home after the emotions have died down, have worn off, that you paid too much money for this. It doesn't help when you call your friend and they say, "You paid how much?" So this is never a great feeling. All right, so how can we say that? How can we say you've been ripped off? It's overpriced. You've paid too much is the most direct way to say it. They're fleecing you, or in the past, they fleeced you. You've been fleeced. All of those ways are perfectly natural and common. That's highway robbery. This is actually a very common expression that we get from the days of banditry, when, as you're traveling down these lonely highways, bandits, particularly common in central and southern Italy, which is, I think, well, honestly, anywhere during the Middle Ages, it was a little bit of banditry, but you would be sort of attacked. Highway robbery means they've taken basically your money. You've paid way too much for this. All right. I hope these are very interesting. I'm certain they are because I find them interesting. And I know that if I do, probably you all do as well, because we're all pretty much the same in this respect. All right, we're going to have to tighten our belt. We have a belt right around our waist that holds our jeans up. If you tighten it, metaphorically, we're going to spend less money. Spend less money. So you might do away, forego, do without your very expensive latte at the cafe every day for the next week in order to save the money that you lost by getting scammed last week or whatever. And my sister's definitely living beyond her means. If you live beyond your means, you're paying too much money. I mean, you're spending too much money based on what you earn. In other words, more is going out than is coming in. This is a deficit. This means you're in the red. This means eventually you will have a problem. All right. Now you have a vocabulary bank, page 168. It's near the bottom here. But I want to talk about collocations. How do we most commonly use them? So budget, I've already mentioned a budget deficit. Let's make a budget, which I think is quite interesting. And I'll challenge you all. Do you all make a monthly budget? Does your family, or I don't know, your spouse, does someone in your family make a budget? It's something you can answer on your own. Obviously, you don't have to share this information. A deposit, you make a bank deposit. That's the most common collocation. A donation, you donate to charity. So you can say a charitable donation, very common collocation. You have a fare that you pay on a toll road. It's a private highway built by probably a private company, and you pay a fare or a fee. You can have a fare also on a ferry, F-E-R-R-Y. You go on a ferry and there's a fare, that's a fee, and we have fee here. A fine is, so a fare and a fee are normal things that you pay for a service. A fine is something you pay when you've done something wrong. You have violated an ordinance or a law, broken the law, and you have to pay a fine. A grant is normally associated sometimes with business, but often with university. Researchers and academics apply for grants. I have a research grant at my university, for example. If you pay in installments, you're on the installment plan. So I'm paying my house or my apartment or my car in installments. That's a bit of a tongue twister. In installments. Try it. In installments. Not easy. Loan. Can you loan me some money? And do you need me? Wait, so you loan people money or you borrow money from someone? I loan you money or I borrow money from you. Those are very commonly confused, as all of our teachers know. And sometimes, occasionally, we will also confuse them. A lump sum, all in one, just one big sum. All right. You have a quote. Oftentimes, if you're investing, the stocks, they'll give you a quote on a stock. All right. Well, lots of vocabulary here. I'm going to let you get to it. And we're going to do, again, pronunciation here. B, number 2. You're going to have to do this. I will just do it. They're going to do it. But these first 2 are so commonly misunderstood. I'm going to actually emphasize it, even though the book and the English file is going to do it as well in their audio series. Debt, no T, no B, sorry. No B is pronounced. It's never debt. It's debt. D-T, debt. And finally, Mortgage. So don't, again, here we drop not the B, but the T. Mortgage. No T. Mortgage. All right. So silent letters can be confusing, or if we want to use a bigger word, confounding. Normally, we would say they confound if we want to be more dramatic. Here, an introductory exercise before we get to the grammar bank. And this is a very important lesson, I believe, because we have a lot of, well, this is a little bit difficult for some people, the unreal uses of past tenses with if, a lot of if clauses. Now, here's what I'd like you to do. Here's how I would encourage you to study. I'm going to read number 1, and then I'm going to ask you a question, and then you'll base your study habits around the answer to that question. So number 1, it's so expensive. I wish I could afford it. I wish that you hadn't spoken to Julie like that. Julie like that. You know how sensitive she is. So here's my question. Ask yourself, do you use these expressions? If you do, move on to the next. Don't waste your precious time rehearsing things you already know, because there's a lot in this chapter, there's a lot in every unit that you don't know. So go straight to the stuff you don't know. If you have time later and you have the luxury of reviewing the things you do know, do it. So if you don't usually say number 1, guess what? We're going to go here and read the grammar behind it. So we use wish plus past simple to talk about things we would like to be different in the present or future, but which are impossible or unlikely. We use wish plus past perfect to talk about things which didn't happen in the past and which we regret. All right. Now, read those and then practice ones on your own. For example, I will just practice. Now I'll start to create my own. I wish I hadn't taken such a long holiday because I'm behind in work now. I wish I hadn't taken such a long holiday. What about you? What's something you wish you hadn't done? All right, you can practice these. Let's look at the first one. It's so expensive. I wish I could afford it. It's so far away. I wish it were closer. I wish I could go there. So you can make up sentences based on your own situation. Number 2, if only he were a bit less stubborn, excuse me, or if only you hadn't forgotten the map. We'd be there by now. So we look at number 2. We use if only instead of I wish. We sometimes use, it's less common and more emphatic. I like this. If only I hadn't had such a long holiday. It's a little bit stronger than I wish. All right, I will do some of the others. Ask yourself, have I ever used this in a sentence? Speaking, not listening. We've listened to a lot of phrases and sentences, but have I actually actively used it on my own? If not, then I want you to practice these, because this is how you improve. So for example, let's just go here. I gave you an example. If only oh no, it's this one. If only I hadn't taken such a long holiday. If only he were closer, or she. All right. Number 3, I wish she were a bit more generous. If only the weather were a bit warmer. Again, if you don't say these, I want you to go down to 3 and read about it and see if you understand the grammar that underpins this construction. Number 4, I'd rather you left. So this is a preference or a wish. You're expressing a preference here or a wish. I'd rather you left your dog outside. This is a very polite and rather sophisticated way. I say sophisticated, but it's a nice way of stating your preference. I'd rather you I'd rather you not come. These are sometimes negative. I'd rather we go to a different restaurant. Number 5, don't you think it's time you found a job? It's time. This is a nice one. It's high time. It's an expression not used too often, but it's high time to go back to school. You stopped 2 years ago. It's high time to return. All right. And we are returning to school because this is school for us. School means education. You've got homework here that I'm going to let you do. And listening, we've got the listening that you will listen to right here. 5:14, we're going to hear about some Italian food. And I think when it comes to listening, all of us don't mind that. I think we'd probably prefer eating, but we get to listen to it. So you're going to have some listening exercises. And that's quite, if I can use a culinary term, you've got a full plate. You've got a lot on your plate for this lesson. So I'm going to wish you well. Good luck. Study hard. Keep a positive attitude. And here's how you keep a positive attitude in the middle of the course when you're getting tired. Focus on the joy of learning things you didn't know before. So take a deep breath, accept the fact you can't learn everything, and just enjoy the little pieces you're learning. Try to remember them, try to use them actively, and go from there. Don't worry, we're all running our own race, but do enjoy it. You will remember things a lot longer when you're smiling or genuinely curious. All right, thank you. Study hard. See you soon.